we just started getting word just a couple of moments ago that Charlie Kirk has been shot. We have very few details so far coming in on this.
We think that Charlie Kirk just got shot in the neck. Ay, ooh, ah.
I'm not saying she deserved it, but I'm saying God's timing is always right.
Yo, they got Charlie Kirk, bro. I've never been happier.
Never believe the reason I'm smiling. And it has nothing to do with Charlie Kirk. Nothing to do with...
I would say pour one out for Kirky boy, but I don't waste good beer on little bitches.
Rest in peace, bozo!
Charlie Kirk just got put down like a fucking dog in Utah.
I do not, and I will not, ever feel bad when bad people get what the fuck they deserve.
I just heard that someone shot Charlie Kirk? Thoughts and prayers.
Oh no, someone shot Charlie Kirk. Look, I don't know who needs to hear this today, but that's how you pick up a woman.
We got Charlie in the neck. We got Charlie in the neck.
Like just about everyone in America, I've had a lot on my mind since Charlie Kirk was shot in the throat at a college campus in Utah. And like just about everyone in America, most of the things I have had on my mind have the veil of doom cast over them, and this prevailing sense that our beloved shining city on a hill is currently shrouded by dark storm clouds and an impending sense of profound unease. Bad omens indeed. Now, of course, because I live in the weirdest of all possible timelines, I feel compelled to say this at the outset. I did not know Charlie Kirk. In a strange twist of 21st century fate, we actually followed each other on Twitter, but that should be viewed less as a sign of mutual political agreement and more of an interesting outgrowth of the way that my job as a professional political consultant often puts me in company with people I disagree with. And in better moments, it's actually something I cherish. Not only did I not know Charlie Kirk, but I didn't know much about him either, except of course for all the things we all knew about him. Most of what I saw was either some viral post of his or some inflammatory tweet that I just happened to be staring at my feed long enough to even come across. But I think I can safely say that when it comes to politics, there is very little, if anything, people like Charlie Kirk and I would agree on. In fact, I saw his personal brand as exactly the type of political influencer who has consumed our discourse to such a degree that we now find ourselves reluctantly in a country where political violence is becoming more and more normalized. The irony that Charlie Kirk was killed because of a climate that he helped perpetuate is certainly not lost on me. And lest you think this is an attack on right-wing influencers specifically, just know I am not susceptible to the both-siderism arguments that often confuse moments like these. I do think it is both sides, but more on that in a minute. Despite that level of disagreement, though, in absolutely no way do I support Charlie Kirk getting shot. I don't care how abhorrent I found his personal politics. No one should be physically attacked, much less murdered, simply for their political views. The fact that I live in a country and at a time in the cultural zeitgeist where I even have to say that is telling. And if you're someone who thinks that Charlie Kirk, a 31-year-old, might have, quote, had it coming, then I would challenge you to look just a few more moves ahead on the political chessboard. Look around at other countries where political violence is the norm and where political assassinations are commonplace. What do they all have in common? Every single one of them is a terrible place to live. The moral reasons that all good people of conscience should be against all political assassinations, Charlie Kirk included, should be obvious. He was only 31 years old. That's the same age as my own little brother. Imagine, if only for a moment, being in the shoes of Charlie Kirk's parents, or his wife, or his siblings, watching in horror as the violent assassination video of your loved one goes viral, and in 5 minutes, The internet is ablaze with people arguing over whether or not and to what extent he might have deserved it. You might not have a lot of sympathy for Charlie Kirk, but maybe you can have some for his mother. But if that is still lost on you, then let me give you another reason why you should not be gleeful at this kid's assassination. If you're someone who finds themselves excited or even happy at the idea of Charlie Kirk's assassination, then I would venture to guess that you're probably quite concerned with what you perceive as America's descent into fascism. Okay, I can't say I blame you. I have a lot of the same concerns. In fact, many smart, rational people in the world share those concerns. And if you're one of them, then you should take a moment to look around critically at the world you are already in. We are more than a couple of decades into a world where the normal institutions that hold up society and protect individual citizens have started to collapse. We live in a country where the courts and even law enforcement agencies are increasingly weaponized for political power. Congress has long been completely useless when it comes to doing the business of the American people. Even private industry, certainly no avid defender of the working class on its best days, routinely demonstrates its propensity to bend the knee to power when it suits only even its narrowest economic interests. In this world, what is stopping someone like President Trump from waking up one morning and deciding that all, quote, radical leftists, as he broadly defines them, are now enemies of the state? Please tell me, what institution, what arm of political power in this country will stand up and defend you? Do you really think that some district appeals court somewhere can save you when the entire apparatus of the federal government is unified in their mission to arrest or detain, or worse, all radical left enemies of the state? Does this scenario really sound that far-fetched to you anymore? Political assassinations of people you loathe are all fun and games until the Gestapo is knocking on your door. And nothing greases the wheels of fascism like targeted political violence. Now, there's also a decent-sized portion of the country who would actually agree with and support this kind of takeover. Make no mistake. And if you're one of them, then I want to talk directly to you now. If you're someone for whom the arrest and detention of all radical leftists sounds like a good idea, then I would invite you to consider one unavoidable fact. Donald Trump is 79 years old. Even if he runs for and wins a third term, or even a fourth or a fifth, it's simply a fact that he won't be around forever. And there is absolutely no guarantee that Republicans will continue to win the next election or the one after that when he is gone. In fact, I think it's much more likely that they won't. In other words, the political pendulum in this country will swing back eventually. And just like that, all the power that Trump has grabbed will now be in the hands of someone you hate. Weaponized political power doesn't have a party. So if you're cheering on the idea of a President Trump-sized wrecking ball tearing through the apparatus of government to enact some dystopian arrest the left style campaign, you only need to imagine that same power in the hands of President Gavin Newsom or President Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and now all of a sudden, the destruction of our institutions for political gain doesn't sound so enticing, does it? At the time of writing, Charlie Kirk has been dead for almost 2 weeks. And while we haven't exactly seen the string of high-profile political assassinations or assassination attempts in the few days since, as we all know, this is just the latest in a cycle that has been escalating for years and will almost certainly continue. I think a reasonable case could be made that while we tend to lump all these incidents together only when they include a notable politician, like the attempt on Donald Trump last July, or the assassination and subsequent attempt on 2 Minnesota lawmakers this June, we really need to zoom the lens out if we want to get a true sense of the problem here. And that would include the murder of healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last winter, the mass shooting at Emmanuel AME Church a decade ago, the Tree of Life synagogue shooting in 2018. You can think of others. The truth is that America is stuck in a violent cycle of political retribution. And while the assassination of high-profile political celebrities tends to always jump to the front of the headlines, the often overlooked problem with this kind of political climate is that it starts to become so normalized that it bleeds over into the everyday lived experience of everyone in our country eventually. I have been in politics way long enough to remember the 2016 election cycle and all the talk then of something like a civil war. Naturally, when someone talks about a civil war in this country, all of our minds instinctively go back to our own civil war in the late 1800s. But immediately, and as others have pointed out, you realize that a modern civil war would look nothing like that. And so then that starts the fun game of hypothesizing what a modern civil war might actually look like. And 10 years ago, those conversations might have been entertaining in a sort of Walking Dead dystopian fantasy kind of way. So entertaining, in fact, that in some circles, discussions about an impending civil war were almost joyful. I have heard many stories of drunk uncles at the Christmas table making the case that America might even need a second civil war. But these stories always neglect the most painful reality. Civil wars are brutal, and the brutality is never confined to one side of the political spectrum. Innocent people always get caught in the middle. Innocent people, more often than not, become the targets. You don't need to take my word for it. We live in a chaotic world, one with no shortage of civil wars. Just look around countries like Syria, Sudan, Myanmar, Congo, Somalia, Yemen, and others. What do they all have in common? Well, like countries where political violence is the norm and assassinations are common, countries where civil wars break out are never nice places to be. For nearly all of my life, I would have never thought that the United States could be counted in such poor company. But as this tit-for-tat political retribution cycle continues, I'm becoming less sure of that every day. Sadly, I don't think I'm alone in that fear. Like everyone, I am terrified at the very real prospect of Charlie Kirk's assassination causing yet another spike in political violence in this country. Our institutions are too weak, our leaders are too ineffective, and political power is too concentrated at the top for us to keep rolling the dice and getting lucky. The snake eyes of a true catastrophe will come up for us eventually. So it might be time to stop asking what a true civil war in this country might look like. And it might be a good time to start asking ourselves, what if we're already in one? Thanks for watching. If you got something out of this video or found it interesting, I hope you'll drop a like or subscribe, or maybe check out some of the other videos down below. Thanks again.